All right, so let's make our site not look as terrible, but pretty terrible still. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply some CSS. Okay, so what we're going to do this week is we're going to use what's called inline CSS, which means that we write CSS code, our styles, into the elements themselves in here. Okay, we write them basically on the opening tag element or the opening tag of our elements. And then they will apply to just that one specific area. Now, the best way to kind of start is to do this. I like to, on the body tag, okay, because if you look, everything is inside of the body tag. So whatever I apply to the body tag will cascade down, cascade style sheets, will cascade down to all the other elements that are nested within it, and everything that we see that's in the browser window is part of it. So when I put something in here, all these other elements will also have those applied to it. So it's actually a really good kind of way to start. All right. So we're just going to go ahead and on this slide, we're just going to apply just CSS to just the body. Okay. So to apply the CSS, we're going to go into the body tag. Okay. And then after body, but before the very end, I'm going to go ahead and type style equals quotes, and then now we can start writing our different CSS rules. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is background. Now you're going to notice they actually pop up over here, so if you want to do it this way, you can. So there's background color. I'm going to just click on it. There it is. And then we can put what color we would like to put on there. Okay, now I don't care what you use. There's a couple different options. So one option is this. You can actually go through, and there are, I forget how many it is. It's like 133 or something like that of named colors, which means if you write any one of these in here, that will become the color. Okay, so like maroon, medium. These aren't really good because you see like navy blue and midnight blue are kind of the same. This isn't a good representation, so you don't want to do it and then see what it looks like. I don't suggest using these though, just because they're somewhat limited. So what we're going to do, in order to find the color that I would like to use, and I'll put a link below as well, below and to the right. I didn't do it yet, but I will soon. I'll put it down there. What would be better is to actually go to a website that's called W3 Schools. So I'll show you how to do that. So just type in w3schools.com. Like that. And then I'm just going to make this fit so you can see everything. Okay, W3 Schools. Okay, so if you go to the home page, if you actually just scroll all the way down, whoop, and actually I'll probably make a link right to it. You'll see Color Picker. You can click on that. Yeah, I'll probably just make a link directly to it. And then what it allows you to do is you can choose colors here. Okay. Now, you can choose like this, and it'll give you colors. All right, I don't suggest doing it that way because that's kind of the same thing as what we were doing before. Or you can click on this little box here, and it says use HTML5, and it will come up with a little like this thing here, and it'll allow you to basically find a color. So let's just say, I forget what color. I think I was doing like a purplish color. So let's say I like this color, right? So I'll just, oh, that one's great. Ooh, okay, hit OK, and now that's the color. Now it will automatically update it, and then you'll look right here. Yours might be organized a little bit differently because I'm making this window so small, but you'll see basically 3 versions of it. You'll see this, the hex code, you'll see an RGB, and you'll see a HSL, hue saturation lightness version. Any one of these 3 work, and there's also, which I already showed you, there's also words, but this color specifically is not on there, right? Because otherwise it'd have to be millions of words for all the different colors. So you have a lot more options if you just use hex code, RGB, or hue saturation lightness. Okay, so hex code basically is a series of numbers. It always starts with a pound symbol and then letters and numbers in order to represent a color. RGB is red, green, blue. So that's the same thing that's used for emissive displays, such as what your monitor that you're looking at right now. There's 233. It goes to 255, 0 to 255. So 213, and then 176, and this, and that makes a purplish color. So notice that there's a little bit more of red and blue because it's purple, and it's not pure purple, so there's a little bit of the green in there to offset it. Hue saturation lightness. So basically hue would go to 360, right? Or probably 259, or probably 0 to 259. It's how many degrees there are. So if you think about the color wheel, it would be that position. And then the saturation of the color, so you see it's not super saturated. It's a little bit more towards the gray. And then 80% on the lightness. Okay, so I don't really care which one you use. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to grab this and right click and copy, or you can do Control C. Go over here, and now where it says background color and it's got a colon, I'm just going to go ahead and do Control V. Now, if I want to apply more CSS rules, I have to put this in there. You have to do a semicolon. So it's the dot with a little line on there. Then I'm going to do space, and then I'm going to do another rule. So this rule, what I'm going to do is I want my website to fit as 960 pixels, okay? So to show you what that means is if I save this, okay, so I'm going to hit Control S, and then I'm going to open the site back up here, and let's refresh it. You're going to notice that it's going to be kind of hard to show you, but let's say I move this over, and I expand this. Maybe I get to where there's where I get to, let me scroll down, and I expand this. You're going to notice that, look over here, that no matter what, this I don't have a lot of text, so it's not going too far, but it'll go as far as I expand my web page. Okay, let me just make this smaller. But if I go ahead and we'll make it a certain width, so I'm going to go width colon, and then I'm going to say 960 px because we're doing fixed width, which means that it's literally going to be 960 pixels. I'm going to save it again. I'm going to go back and preview again. Now, I'll refresh this. I'm going to hit Control R to refresh, or Command R. Now watch this. If I expand this, see how this horizontal rule no longer, it only will go to 960. It no longer expands. I don't have any other elements that are long. See how this line of text only goes this far. So if I had a really long line of text, it would have gone all the way. But now that line of text will only go as far as this line right here when I go to expand it. So now it's only 960 pixels wide, okay? Because I'm trying to make a absolute size for my web page, okay? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply margin to the whole thing. So margin is the space from each element to the outside of it. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and make it 10 pixels, 10 px. And then we're also going to do padding, and we're going to do 0 px. Now you might be like, well, why am I bothering writing padding if I'm just putting 0 in there? Because by default, the browser will impose its own design. So if you actually look at a web page on one browser, let's say Firefox, and then you go to Google, they might look slightly different. They're not supposed to, but depending on the browser, they have their own defaults of what the web page would look like, unless the web developer or designer specifically said, I want to look like this. So if there's anything that they didn't put in there, the web browser will then use its own defaults and apply them. The web browser in Firefox might have by default 10 in the padding, and then maybe Google has 5, and so it'll look slightly different from one or the other, but I wanted to have 0. So if you remember, padding is from the content of the element, so usually text or the image, from to the outside of the element. So it's kind of like the internal space of the element itself, but I'm just going to make it 0. Next thing I want to do is add the font family. So I want to change the entire, all my fonts. So we're just going to go ahead and do font. And then this is actually going to be a lot easier. Don't try to type this out. It's going to be a lot easier if you actually use this, the thing that pops up. I'm going to go font family, and I'll hit enter on that. And then you'll see it gives us a bunch of options, okay? So you see there's a whole bunch of them here. The one I am going to use is the Franklin Gothic Medium Arial blah, blah, blah. So these are, by default, the fonts that you should hopefully have, okay? Now, you might be thinking, I'm just going to go ahead and choose this one, and I'll explain why there's so many. So, and then when I'm done with that, I'm just going to hit the semicolon again. Now, the reason why you see Franklin Gothic Medium, and then Arial Narrow, then Arial, then Sans Serif, is because what's going to happen is that when the browser opens the web page, it's going to look on my computer and be like, does this computer have Franklin Gothic Medium? Does it have that font, that typeface? Is that installed on the computer? right? Because this is the most specific. Now, if I don't, it's going to look for Arial north, or narrow, sorry, which is less specific than this, right? Arial's sort of generic, and Arial narrow is a little bit more precise. Now, if I don't have that, it'll be like, okay, does it just have Arial at least? And if I don't have Arial, it'll be like, okay, a sans serif, because a sans serif is a whole typeface family. So basically, it tries to get this one, and then it works its way down if it can't find each one of these, because it's guaranteed to have a sans serif, okay? That's why there's multiple ones of them. It starts with the most specific and then goes to the most broad, because not every computer has the same typefaces installed. Okay, next we're going to do is color. So color. And this is the same thing as last time, where I'm going to go to the W3 schools. Okay, back to this thing. And I just want to do a really dark gray. So I'm going to pull this. Oh, let me move this down. You can see this little arrow thing here. I'm going to pull it all the way down so it's gray. And then I'm just going to go down this, and I'm not going to do absolute black. I find that like a dark gray looks really good. And we'll hit OK. And then I'll scroll down. And this time, let's go ahead and just use RGB. I don't know what I used in. Oh, I used hex code. But I'm just going to use RGB. Okay, Control C. Now you're going to notice that these look different than what I put because I made them earlier. But it doesn't really matter as long as you're using one of these. And so now it's RGB, and it's those things, okay? And we'll hit semicolon. That's good. And last but not least, as far as our overriding, our defaults is kind of basically what we're setting up. We're going to just do font size, okay? So color is going to be the color of our text. So font size, let's just go ahead and do font hyphen size. And then we will do 18 pixels, 18 px, and semicolon, okay? Now I will save that, and now go ahead and preview, drum roll, Control R, and voila. So now you see it's purple. I don't know if you can tell, but this is a little bit lighter. You can see our font is slightly different, looks a little bit nicer than it was before. There's a little bit of space. Notice there's a little bit of a gap now between our content and the side. I don't know if there was before. There's also a little bit more of a gap between each of the elements because we added that margin. So the margin adds a gap between this and this and this and this. Basically everything that we wrote, everything that has an opening closing tag or if it's an open element too, it puts a gap in between. Okay, so we just kind of set the defaults of the page, and that looks acceptable if things could so. All right, so in the next one we're going to do is just apply the rest of the code. Okay.